It's September, and most likely you have a space in your garden that you need to fill, and perhaps you're thinking about planting a cover crop. That was exactly what happened in my garden last year in this space you see behind me. For many gardeners, growing a cover crop sounds great, but it can be a little intimidating to know what kind of cover crop to plant, when to plant it, and then what to do with it whenever it's time to terminate the crop. While there are many cover crops to choose from and many different methods on how to use cover crops in your garden, I'm going to show you what I've been using for the past 2 to 3 years that I think is the simplest way to get started using cover crops in your garden. And fall is a great time to start planning and planting those cover crops. Today I'm going to show you exactly which cover crop mix I planted in this space right here, when I planted it last year, how it grew throughout the season, when I decided to terminate it, and how I terminated it using a no-till method, and then how I planted the crop you see today. So if you've been thinking about cover crops and you just need a way to get started, this video is going to share with you exactly what you can do, how to do it, and how to use it in your garden as well. The first thing I had to do last fall is decide which part of my garden bed that I would plant in. I chose this part of my ground bed because I didn't have any plans to grow a fall crop in it, but I didn't choose the entire part of my ground bed garden to plant the cover crop in. The reason for this was because the cover crop that I chose, I knew that I would be growing it through the end of May to the beginning of June, and I wouldn't be able to plant a crop in it until the early part of July. That took out the spring planting entirely, which is why I didn't plant my entire garden in this cover crop mix. Now, I could have terminated the crop early. I could have terminated it as soon as I wanted to in the spring to still be able to plant a spring planting in, but because I was only doing a portion of my garden with this cover crop mix, I wanted to make sure that it had a chance to grow to full maturity so that I would be able to terminate it and it be able to have the most benefit for the soil. But if I had a small garden space, I might choose to plant this anyway and then just terminate it early. But first, before planting, I had to get the bed ready. To get the bed ready, I raked aside the mulch from the previous crop and then weeded as necessary to prepare the seed bed. I chose the cover crop mix from True Leaf Market. Now, although they are a sponsor of this video, I've been using this mix and I've been using these seeds for the past 3 or so years, but I've had great success with all of the cover crop seeds that I've used and any other seeds for that matter. But I specifically chose the garden cover crop mix for this part of my garden because of the diversity in cover crops that are in this mix. This non-GMO cover crop garden mix features 9 of the most popular and best-selling seasonal cover crop seeds. In this mix is a blend of both annual and perennial crops such as Austrian field pea, hard red winter wheat, triticale, daikon radish, collards, hairy vetch, clovers, and mustard. This cover crop mix not only puts nitrogen back into the soil with the legumes that are involved, which is really what cover crops are known for, but they also have different crops that improve weed suppression, erosion control, and they also help with the soil tilth and structure. I have definitely seen this anytime I've used this mix in my garden. All of these elements were considered in compiling this carefully chosen cover crop seed blend. There are 4 legumes to set nitrogen in the soil, 3 hardy grains for rapid cover and biomass, a deep-rooted radish to help break up and aerate the soil, a mustard with natural insecticidal properties, and it also helps with disease suppression, and then there's a great collard for forage and additional biomass. This cover crop mix can be used for either a fall or a spring planting, and the termination would be the same as what I'm going to show you in my fall planting, and most of these crops do overwinter in my 7B garden. After planting and watering in, I added the mulch back on top of the soil to help retain moisture, since September and October tend to be really dry here. The early seeds sprout quickly in the warm soil and right through the mulch. From there, I just had to watch it grow through the months. In early June, I noticed that the flowers were starting to fade. My goal was to terminate, or kill, the crop before it had a chance to set seed. This was tricky because some seeds, like those in the Brassica family, had already set seeds before some of the flowering plants had faded. I chose to wait until most of the flowers faded so I could support as many pollinators and beneficial insects for as long as possible. Finally, it was time to terminate the cover crop, which is a big challenge for a lot of gardeners, especially if they're growing in a raised bed or if they're growing in a garden where they don't want to till. Since I don't till my garden anymore, I choose to terminate cover crops by either mowing or weed eating, as you see here. At this time, because I was still recovering from a herniated disc in my back, my husband helped me out and terminated the crop. After he mowed the crop down, I left it on top of the soil to begin to decompose. Last year when I did this exact same process, I waited about 2 weeks before planting my next crop. But this year I ended up waiting a full month, and mainly that was because we were on vacation and we waited until we came back on vacation. Either way would work and has worked, but I liked waiting the full month because I felt like more of the cover crop was able to incorporate itself into the soil, especially in the heat of the summer when decomposition tends to be more rapid. To prepare for the planting, I raked back the part of the cover crop that hadn't broken down yet into the soil. That way I could plant corn seeds in a ready seed bed. If I were to have planted transplants like tomatoes or peppers, I would have just moved the terminated cover crop aside and planted underneath, where the cover would be an already there mulch, moving it back to surround the stems. But because I was planting corn seeds, I moved the cover and planted directly into the soil. For planting, I used the Earthway garden seeder that I had bought over the winter. I found that very helpful for spacing, and it definitely saved my back from lots of bending. After planting, I made sure to add drip lines because corn loves irrigation and our late summer and fall tends to be pretty dry. And because the corn was planted in warm soil, the seeds sprouted really fast, and by the time you're watching this video, most likely this corn will be in full harvest. What I love about cover crops is, for the most part, it's not that hard to incorporate into your garden. All you have to do is plant and watch, decide how you're going to terminate, and your soil has lots of organic biomass that will continue to feed the soil for years to come. If you're interested in ordering cover crops this year, True Leaf Market is offering a special discount code for a limited time for your cover crop seeds. And if you're not sure which mix or which kind you want to grow, they have a fabulous guide on their website as well. We'll list the discount code and the link and all you need to know to order your cover crops in the description of this video. I can tell you from the years that I've been able to incorporate cover crops into my garden, I've been able to see the difference not only in the soil structure and the soil tilth, but also in the crops that follow. If you want to explore more options on cover crops in addition to the one that I showed you today, then check out this video right here.